Great. Welcome everybody to tonight's discussion. We are going to be hearing from the wonderful Michelle Hernandez, who works with our wholesale team. We'll give Michelle a couple of minutes to get settled in. And while that happens, I am going to quickly remind us of our community agreements. Just give me a second to pull them up. And I will share my screen so everybody can see what All right, welcome to all of those who just joined. My name is Tutu. I'm the Assistant Director for Food Access Initiatives and have been facilitating a lot of our conversations this past year. I'm looking forward to this afternoon's conversation because I feel like we don't often interact with folks from wholesale enough. So Michelle, thank you for coming. We're really excited to hear from you. And just as a reminder to all of us, these are community agreements that we as a group put together as just so we can understand how we're going to interact with one another in this space. So we're encouraging you all to step up and step back, so give room for others to speak. We ask you to trust each other's intention, but also acknowledge impact, especially when someone makes you aware of your impact. Please understand and respect people's boundaries, both physical and verbal. Be clear and honest in your communication so that we can make good decisions. Speak up or reach out if you need help. We're all in this together. We encourage you to have a mutual understanding of the importance of taking breaks. So if you need to take a break, if you need to step away for a reason, feel free to do that, and we hope you can come back. Be open-minded and understanding of people coming from different backgrounds and perspectives. We encourage you to listen to the speakers. I'm actually going to see if that helps. Encourage you to listen to the speakers, even if you might not agree with them. We ask you to be patient, open-minded, and respectful, and acknowledge the strengths of others and work collaboratively. There's no hierarchy during these discussions. We're all here to learn from one another, and we can all learn from one another. So people have, each of us has something to teach the other. And also, we encourage reciprocal feedback, so make sure we're meeting each other's needs. And some text specific ones. If please keep your microphone muted unless you're speaking. If you raise your hand, it's easier for us to be able to call on you and to give you the room to speak. If it's possible, we'd love to see your faces. Please turn your screens on if you're in a place where you can do that. Feel free to use the chat if you have questions, thoughts, our feedback, and we encourage you to respond and challenge ideas, not people. And this is a visual space, so we hope that you don't have anything distracting in the background. Excuse my red bag in the background there. And we'll be recording this event. If you're uncomfortable, please feel free to keep your video turned on. But most of all, take care of yourself. I'll stop sharing. So Michelle, could you just introduce yourself, tell us what you do at Grow NYC, and also give us some history about how you got into this work?
Thank you, Tutu, and thank you for reading the community agreement. That's great. I love how you opened that. But yes, hi everyone. My name is Michelle Hernandez. I work over at Grow NYC Wholesale. My job title is Leads and Sales Partnership and Development. In simple terms, means that I'm the point person who people would be interested in opening a wholesale account with us, whether if it's retail, supermarket, community partner, community garden, or a school that are interested in doing or sourcing seasonal local vegetables for different needs. But my specialty with that job title, my specialty lies in the food access for external partnerships. And what that really means is it means that if a school or a community garden is interested in adding a food access programming, whether it's a farm stand or a food box, but they want to run it independently and externally, but source directly with us, they definitely have the opportunity to do that. And I can walk them through how to set up an account with us, walk them through like what the application process is to set up an account with us, and really also teaching them what's in season, what are some of the products that they can order from us during the peak season versus year round off peak season. But most of the time, most partners are interested in doing it in season, which is the month of from July to November. That's our peak season that wholesale is able to get these aggregates of 50 to 60 plus farmers that we work with in a large network that we work with, that they're able to provide produce to us at a wholesale cost. Now, I know I said a lot, so forgive me. I just wanted to make sure that people on the call understand that that Grown by Sea Wholesale is a food hub and a wholesale distributor. So we're responsible of delivering X amount of produce or products that's sold from our warehouse to our partners, whether if it's a restaurant, like I said, restaurant, store, or a community partner. Our job is to make sure that we are supplying local produce that we're getting from our farmers. So that's one. The food access tail of that is also providing them technical services in terms of how to run a food box independently or farm stand independently externally, or sourcing directly from Grown by Sea Wholesale. So I kind of provide the gap in between of providing sourcing products that's in season while training or educating partners how to purchase either wholesale directly through different channels or food access programming. So I'm going to stop there and see if everyone understands that. I know
I
it's a
actually,
lot.
yeah, I actually, you said two things that I would love you to expound on.
Mhm.
So you said that Growing My Sea Wholesale is a food hub and a distributor. Can you just explain what those two
Mhm.
things mean?
Absolutely. So food hub in the sense that we work with different farmers, and then I call it like a large network of farmers that we aggregate different farmers that are coming to funnel into our warehouse, meaning we don't just work with one farmer. Most traditionally, food hub, you're working with multiple channels and multiple people. I would say channel in the sense, if one farmer has only grains, if one farmer only does produce, if we have another farmer that does only sweeteners, we work in collaboration to funnel that channel to our hub, to our central focus hub, where we can submit orders from our partners or from clients who are interested in getting these products from us. Because we have the leverage and the relationship building already in place with wholesale, we're able to make it one access channel or hub, that instead of going to the farmer directly, because mostly if you go to a farmer directly, they're going to ask for large quantities from an individual customer. And that's something that a customer may not be able to do that. They can't take a pallet of just one particular item. So like an apple, like apples, right? They would have to order like maybe 5 pallets, and that's a large quantity for one particular client. So instead of that, the hub, food hub, is where we come in and we aggregate different quantities to clients based on that, based on their needs. So we have that space that we can do that. Wholesale distributor, what I mean by that is, again, from a client perspective, like from a supermarket perspective, instead of like Michelle, we're just interested in getting $200, $250 worth of mixed products, but we want to mix and match. They can certainly do that from a wholesale food hub perspective. Whereas if the supermarket was going directly to the farmer, again, the farmer will say, no, you would have to buy 5 or 6 pallets of lettuce. So again, that's kind of, I use that interchangeable. So I'm hoping that I was able to understand and break that down visually speaking.
Yeah, I think you did. Thank you.
So basically, in a nutshell, if I were to sum up my job, I like to talk about vegetables and what's in season to clients who are interested in purchasing with us. I make the onboarding process a little easier and less intimidating because when folks come to me and say, yes, I really want to work with you. I really want to order some seasonal products, but I'm lost in terms of what to order or what's in season. So that's where the opportunity for me comes in and wear my educator hat and say, well, our best time of our products that we're getting in the state of New York is from July to November, but we operate year round. Don't think that we don't limit ourselves that way, but our best peak time, if you're interested in sourcing with us, the best time for us is usually from July to November. And then after that, we do source out of region products that we rely on out the Southeast region parts of the US, meaning Florida, and the areas in the southeast part of the United States, where we get some of their greens and their nightshade products because we love colorful products after winter. So we have to eat every day. So our clients feel the same way. If our products just only result of New York State products, then it would be very sad. So we need some colorful products to make up our product list a little more vibrant and a little more color during the after peak season.
Yeah. Michelle, tell us how did you get into this work?
Mm.
What is it that excites you about this work? Did you go to school for this? Did this just like something you learned or picked up along the way and
Oh.
just fell in love?
So how I got into this work was back in 2004. I get 2000, 2008. Yeah, 2008. I didn't go to school for to learn the like how to work at a farm or go to school learning about like Cornell or NYU, those type of food programs. I kind of just literally I literally said to myself, during the recession that I was in, I wanted to take an internship, work at a farm, figure out like what farms that are in New York that I can go that instead of going to upstate. And I applied for several farms that was available at the time. And I just like, hey, can I work for free? And it's like, well, yes, you can, but we like to start you off as a volunteer first and see how you are. So I just started to volunteer at community gardens, any open community hours of farm when they need like help. Like that's how I really started it. And then from that point on, I took classes that Brooklyn Botanical Garden, is it Brooklyn Botanical Garden, that they were offering those certification classes. So I took like soil and pest control. And that was just like the basics, just for I can understand what's going on in terms of farming and the soil, because that's very important to know. And then after that, several internships later, I was able to work at a farm year round at an urban farm at Lower Manhattan called the Battery Urban Farm. That was like my first real internship that I was able to work with children and adults of learning how to work at an actual small urban farm. And then later I applied for a job at Grow NYC as a compost coordinator. And that was really like the start of my career there because I knew the relationship over at Governor's Island at the time. When I was interning at the Battery Park, the coordinator there, her husband worked at Governor's Island, Sean, and that's how I was able to connect with him to get a job as a part-time to be one of those teachers. Assistants to teach at the garden with kids, so I had that background. So really, it just started I started to move up. I started to network with a lot of folks in that space, and I was able to work with more kids and education. So really that was like my foundation, food and education. Basically what I used to do with you, what you were doing, Tutu, but in a different scale. And years later, I started doing my own visits like to farms to make relationships and just taking 2 weeks off from work and just work at the farm. Really, that was my passion. It's just to know more about the land and from that standpoint. And then when I came back, there was a position at wholesale that, I thought I would apply. And And really, my leverage there was because I was a food box coordinator and I knew the product and I knew what was in season. I knew like what's grown best like during the time of July to November. So I knew the product so well that I was able to leverage my way to work for wholesale. And I've been working for wholesale for almost 3 years now, going on 4. So hope.
I love that, Michelle. Well, it's encouraging because I think some folks feel like if they're, if their career leads them in one way, they have to get stuck in it. And I think you're just such a great example of how it's possible to cover a new career for yourself and match it with the things that you're passionate and excited about. Um, can you tell us some of the history behind the wholesale? Like, how did it come into, where did this idea come from? What are some of the early beginnings of wholesale?
Yeah, so wholesale, I believe it started in 2000. I don't know if it's 2000 I don't know if it's 2012, 2010. It was somewhere around that time. It was definitely not when I started for sure, but I believe it started out as the director at the time. They needed the director at the time, who was Olivia Blanchflower. She was running wholesale. She was promoted to that position while she was working as a youth market manager, and one of the community members in Brooklyn, I don't remember which district, they were interested in running a youth market. And at the time it was so unstructured. Like they just like, look, we just need some produce that we need to buy wholesale, and we need to set up a booth, we need to set up a tent, and it has to be our Saturday market. So what Olivia did is like, I think she was able to go to the Hunts Point. I think we have like a Hunts Point farmers market type of thing we have 2 farmers that they can sell their products on a particular day and at a particular time, and they could purchase right there wholesale. So that's literally what she did. She literally went to these 2 farmers. She ordered what she could and packed it into her car and literally drove to that location in Brooklyn. And that was like the first time that they were able to deliver to this particular farm stand that wasn't even like Grown My City farm stand. It was just like the council member gave us funding for that particular community partner, and they just needed to comply. And I think from that point on, it started to build like the momentum, like, oh wow, this can be a really great thing. We need some kind of infrastructure in between. Years later, we moved into 3 different warehouses. Our current warehouse now is located in Co-op City, which is now more structured. We have walk-in refrigerators where we have produce that we can store overnight, that we get the products in the day before, receive them, and then start packing them for our customers. But prior to that, it was like a learning curve. I mean, from what I've heard and what I've read. Given that I've been working here for 3 years, I was able to see the changes that has been made at the wholesale level. Whereas before, it was more restaurant, cafe, and supermarket. Now, because of before we didn't expect the pandemic, it seems now that after the pandemic, we're starting to see more and more customers who are doing either food access needs or programming, or they are doing their own version of their emergency food access programming through funding through the state, the agri market, fresh funding that they were able to, like the Nourish New York, were able to accept that because of partners that are nonprofit, that they're able to buy in only products that are from the state. So in order for them to comply that, they have to work with a distributor like ourselves to provide wholesale quantities. So that's where that's where we've been seeing that more and more now, that after we have gone over the pandemic of 2020 and 2021. Now that we're in 2022, we're starting to see now the need more food access, especially now We have community partners who are having like, hey, Michelle, we have this funding that we're providing free bags to our community, but this is our budget. This is our budget for 3 months. Can we do this? And we have a stipulation in place that we need to order products that are from the New York State. So that's where we come in. So it's been a wild ride, but I feel like that's where we're going towards that new direction. Even our new warehouse that we're getting, that's being built, and I believe the completion is not till next year. But now we're starting to see that that is more the demand now. It could change, who knows? But from what I'm seeing now, it's starting to be more and more on the food access, then retail, and then slowly restaurants.
Yeah, Michelle, I think you began to mention you began to answer this question, but
Oh, okay.
give us a give us an idea of who some of your customers are. Is this schools, like food pantries? Who
Right.
are people who are buying from wholesale?
So since I'm the point person who I'm onboarding new partners to wholesale, we're starting to see now pantry programs like I'm trying to remember. The the women's Jewish community out in out in Crown Heights. That's just one that I can remember off the top of my head. Just recently, I just finished onboarding Metro Plus. They're planning to do like X amount of numbers of deliveries for doing bag distribution. So we're getting more or less like partners like from the high end, not high end, but like from a bracket of like volume wise, we're getting mostly pantry distribution giveaways for based on their funding, giving it to the community. Then you see another tier of Nourish New York recipients, meaning pantry programs and CBOs who have to order products from us. And then you start seeing the food access, which is the external partnerships, which is like a community garden from Phoenix Community Garden as an example, or Maple Street or Pratt. That's where the food access model, where they're external partners but they're ordering directly from us. And then after that you start seeing programming, our internal programming, farm stand and food box. And then you start seeing the smaller volumes, which is I don't want to say small volume, but the smaller customers who are just ordering like wholesale grains, wholesale flour, wholesale, just the box of apples. So really that if you could see the scope, it's like a triangle effect where we start the pantries and community and food access are the top two that we've been seeing more and more.
So this is actually the second time we've heard about Nourish New York. The first time we had it was from Kelly Corton, who's a farmer at Green Markets. But
Mhm.
for the folks who are unfamiliar with what Nourish New York is, can you just explain to them what it
Yes.
is and how wholesale benefits from it?
Oh yeah, absolutely. So Nourish New York is a funding that that is coming from the state of New York, Agri Market. They're the ones who are providing resources or funding to I think a handful of recipients who are doing they're doing a pantry giveaway or pantry necessity resource to community partners. It has to be within the nonprofit sector. This grant is it used to be a limited seasonality to for folks to spend down. The Nourish grant I think is usually distributed from June to November, and it was limited 2 years back. And because of the pandemic during the time of 2020 and 2021, Agri-Market decided to extend that Nourish New York funding to all year round. So what that means, like these community partners can spend their fund. They're not in the rush of spending their funding right away. They can actually slowly spend down their amount. Let's just say, I'm just going to throw a number, 25,000, right? That means that 25,000 funding, they can split that. They can slowly spend that down freely, but before the year ends. So in the past, it was only limited from like July to November. Now this year, they were, I think Kathy Hochul, our Governor Kathy Hochul, was able to extend it to make it available year round for this year. We don't know about next year, but what that means for us, wholesale, we benefit for that program because the partners now can source from us, not just seasonally, but they can source from us year round. Meaning after November, we'll have products from New York State. And we don't only just sell produce, but we also sell grains, sweeteners, and pastas that we just got onboarded for a new product, and canned goods like tomato sauce. I know these two items are not so exciting, but before, like, we never had it, and because it's Nourish New York qualify, like they can purchase that under that grant. That means new opportunity for us, not just limited to produce, perishable products. So
Yeah, that's exciting. I've heard from a lot of farmers that this grant was basically a saving grace for them during
yes.
the pandemic,
Mhm.
because a lot of the farmers markets were closed, or the places where they normally sell food were inaccessible to them. So being able to get this additional income was incredible.
Yes.
Um, I'm going to voice a question in the chat. Are the farmers you deal with the same farmers at our markets, and where are your grains coming from?
So those are two questions. So ideally, that was the goal, is to have the more farmers that we have already at Grow and Weiss at Green Markets to become wholesales. However, that's not always the case, but we have a handful. One in particular, we have a farmer, row by row, lovely farmer from they sell at the Union Square, and I can't remember what other, but I remember seeing them at Union Square. We also have R&R.
Yeah, Rogelio, he spoke to us
R.
last year.
Yeah,
Mhm.
R&R. He's one of our great farmers that we worked in the past. That's a great farmer that we work with wholesale capacity. I'm trying to remember.
SNSO.
SNSO, yes, thank you
Mhm.
to SNSO. Another great farmer that we work with in collaboration for their products that we get for wholesale. And
I don't remember all the. I don't know
oh,
if you
sorry.
have or oh.
Good. Oh, sorry, it was Winnie who was coming in. I was gonna say, yeah, no problem. I was gonna say the grains. Oh, what was your question? Sorry.
Yeah, where do the grains that you are selling through wholesale come from?
So the grains is, let me see if I could get here. Yeah. So the grains is coming from further up, regional access. That's also another hub that we're working with in collaboration uh, under, from what I remember, regional access is like a third party hub where they're funneling, not funneling, but they're working with other small mills that they're able to deliver to them at regional access, which is upstate New York. I don't know exactly where the where in upstate, but what they're able to work with them is because of the freight. And if you know, freight is always tricky, it's always expensive. So they're able to work with the small farmers who are, like if we have a bean farmer, and if we have like a small mill that they just like, listen, we can't do this directly. We need to come to you to somehow, make the order more sustainable to have it shipped to our warehouse. So regional access is the one main partner that we work with. Another farmer, two farmers that I could think of, farmer ground, farmer flower, sorry,
From yeah,
farmer
farmer
ground flower.
ground. I
Yeah,
think yes.
farmer ground flower. Yeah, I always get the acronym wrong. But yeah, so that's one of our, yeah, no problem. That's one of our farmers that we work directly through, that we're able to work wholesale quantities from them.
Yeah.
So, and that's our most popular green flower, not
I
just,
sorry. I don't know if people know this, but we used to have a grain stand, and
I
they
was gonna say
actually were
that.
sourcing their grains through wholesale. I think some people think that the grain stand was separate from wholesale, but a lot of the grains that they were selling at the grain stand all came, actually all the grains from the grain stand all came from
Mm-hmm.
wholesale.
Yeah, that was such a lovely project, and yes, that was also another way that program allowed retail buyers, meaning the small retail amateur bakers or small like restaurants that they wanted to experiment, but instead of ordering large pallets of flour, right, they're able to purchase at a small quantity at the grain stand, and that made it possible because it had two opportunities for us as wholesale. We're able to take in accept small orders from the grain stand at the time to in order to have it shipped directly to our warehouse. So on top of what our wholesale customers are ordering, we also added the grain. So it made it very sustainable for us to do like a lump sum. So that was one. That was the benefit of having the grain stand. The second was also finding out like what other grains that we didn't sell wholesale, but grains we're ordering in small quantities retails, meaning um this is one particular farmer who only sells like one variety of flour that unfortunately wholesale can't have. Not because we can't have it, it's because it's a niche product. And usually, flours that we'd like to keep wholesale needs to make sense in terms of financial sustainability. So if we're going to get like a niche product, I'm just going to make this up, like heirloom flour that has 90% protein and 5% other, I can't really think of what the other is. Like that's a very specific product that unfortunately wholesale, we just don't have a clientele who would buy that or who would book that, right? So that would be like a loss for us. If we were to order it wholesale, it would just be sitting in our warehouse, and unfortunately it would go bad, and then we would have to compost it, and that wouldn't make sense for us to carry something like that. So we only carry like products that are like, that gives large volume but also large quantities for purchasing wholesale, like AP flour, cornmeal, beans, you know, products that we know that we're going to move the shelves per se.
Yeah, that makes sense. So the mission of of Grow and Rice's food access is
Mm-hmm.
to support local farmers, local regional farmers, and to provide locally grown food to every New Yorker. Is wholesale's mission slightly different? Either the original mission or the current mission, what is wholesale hoping to do in the food within the food system? Are they hoping to, to change the current food system as it is and potentially making it better?
I would love for our logistics to be in this conversation because I think that's one of the things that I would I would like to see change is, or to make it better, to make it more accessible, would be offering deliveries at outside of the five boroughs. I know we say that we deliver at the five boroughs, but really in actuality we're very limited based on our fleet capacity, driver capacity, staff capacity, operation capacity. It does take some time to get revenues to make sure that our operation is covered. I mean, this is my wish list. I would love to deliver to Staten Island. I would love to deliver Suffolk County, Long Island, or parts of Long Island, not far out to like Southampton, but places like maybe like Norfolk, not Norfolk, I'm sorry, um, Suffolk County in Long Island. Like I know there's a need there, right? I just, it would make sense for us to have some kind of capacity to deliver there, but unfortunately, we just realistically speaking, we just don't have the operation capacity to cover that. It has to be worked in a little bit more in order for it to make sense. I would love to deliver to the Rockaways, and that unfortunately this year we had to say no because we just didn't have, again, operationally speaking, we didn't have capacity to fulfill that. So these are just little examples that, I would like to see change as we move into the new warehouse next year, but also thinking about, adding more fleets, because if we can add more fleets, that means we have the opportunity to have it delivered to partners who can have access to purchase from us, right? And so they can work on their own food access programming, right? That would be amazing. That's just one example that I could think of in terms of logistics and operation to run a business, right? Um,
Mm.
yeah, I think I can stop there because that's basically my wish list.
Yeah, yeah. And you started, I love how we're all like thinking. You started to talk about, some challenges or realities of sourcing food sustainably, which is the topic that we're talking about. What are some of the biggest challenges other than, logistics and the lack of a fleet that can enable you to take the food to where it's most needed? What are some of the other challenges that you guys are facing while doing your work as wholesale?
Um, I would like
Mhm.
to add in like more diverse products. And when I mean by diverse
Mm,
products, culturally sensitive products that will, entice our partners to, because we vote with our dollars. So that's something that I would like to see more of. We know that Grown NYC Wholesale is doing their due diligence to get more BIPOC farmers to be onboarded, but the want and the actual work is going to be a little challenging because most of these small farmers are not all 100% certified all the way. When I mean certified, meaning certification, food and safety, those type of protocols is needed because of any food handling or any insurance or any legal matter that it has to be straightened out first. And unfortunately, the some of these small farmers may or may not have that. So we need to make sure that that is expressed. And if and I'm glad that we have a department, like I think the not agri market. I keep saying farm roots. I know that's not the name
farmer
anymore.
assistance.
Farmer assistance. We do have a program that we are teaching young farmers, like these are farmers who are well experienced in the fields, but to learn the infrastructure, they're getting that. And I would love to see more of that part. And I know that's going to take some time because it's not an overnight success. So that takes time for them to build up their infrastructure for business wise in order to become a wholesale partner, right? So procurement wise, I would love to see more diverse products into our product list. I would love to get okra during the summertime, and that's usually like spare the moment. When we get it, we'll only get it for 2 weeks, and that's it. Um, I'm surprised this year. I don't think I remember we are getting callaloo, but in the past we used to get callaloo,
Yeah.
um, and then I remember when I was a coordinator at the food box, I would order it for my East Harlem location, as well as Carrie would order it for her Wednesdays. So yeah, like in several farm stands that they will order it for different zip codes. But yeah, like that would be a great thing to keep that consistent, like culturally sensitive products that we can add into our product list. But because of the farmers are growing it, not we want to make way for it, but we also have to be realistic. Like they may or may not have it, or they may not have the certification that is needed before they become an wholesale partner. So I think we just need to work on that, and I don't know how. That's more on the procurement side. I'm not too well versed in the procurement side of it, but I just know from what I'm seeing it from a external standpoint, from a retail point, because that's where our partners are asking these questions. Like, okay, what does your product look like in the summertime? What does the product looks like in the wintertime? Do you have these products? Because our community partner will, are looking for products like bok choy and lemongrass, or like, spinach that's, grown in vines or something. So again, that's feedback that I'm getting from them. And that's something that I have to translate to our procurement department in order for them to 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 to, to get a hold of.
Thank you. Oh, I want to make a quick plug before I ask you my next question. Something that I am noticing and I'm hearing from folks who are working in wholesale, specifically around regional and local agriculture, is the lack of folks who are invested in coming into this space to do logistics and procurement. Um, we know that if you go into these fields, you get paid a lot of money to do that for corporations like US Foods and Cisco. And so, we need some folks who are invested in doing this for nonprofits, invested in doing this for smaller, food hubs like us. So I'm making a plug out to people who are in college. If you're thinking about what to study, how to get involved in the food system, think logistics, think procurement. We have a huge gap for experts in those areas. So that's something that, if you're thinking, okay, I definitely want to do something about the broken food system, and what can I do? Making a plug, logistics. We need people in logistics. We need people in procurement. And yeah, feel free to talk to the people in wholesale as well. They can tell you exactly how important that is, especially with all the especially with the moving parts. Because in a larger, you know, um, a wholesale distributor, they will only work with people. They only work with big numbers, right? And they will not do the work to to figure out how to make it work with smaller farmers. They're not going to do the work to figure out how do we support these farmers, even though it might be difficult to get it might be difficult to get carrots from 5 different farmers, but this is what we're invested in. We're invested in local farmers. So we need more and more people in that space who are invested in working to support our food system, and who are unfortunately willing not to be paid as much, but knowing that the impact
Yeah, the
is going to
impact.
be huge for our future. Um, One question we always get at the farm stands and food boxes is
Hmm.
is the food organic? Do you do
Good
you
question.
yeah,
Good
is that
question.
something like, how are you guys thinking about that question? How are you responding to people when customers ask you about that?
That's a very good question. So yes, and that's just not just from a retail end. We also get that a lot from prospects too when they're inquiring about wholesale. And what I normally would say is this: we do carry organics when it's available from different farmers. Just always remember that the cost attached to it would be greater than the ones that you're purchasing from our small scale farmers, because there's a lot of certification that goes involved when you're selling it to wholesale. And the only reason how they would know this is in our product list, it would be labeled as organic and it will tell you the price point and the poundage and where it comes from. So I know I mentioned row by row. That's because they sell at Union Square, from what I remember back in the days. I don't know if there are other markets, but I know that there are
Yeah.
certified organic farmer
Joanne
that.
says they're also at Tucker Square on Thursdays.
Oh, okay. Oh, okay, good. That's good for them. I've always remember seeing them in Union Square when I was doing, like, when I was working as compost. I would go there just to shop. But yeah, so that's just one example. And I know that I know that we carry like the grains 100% are 100% organic, that for sure, because it's labeled and has always been that way. But the ones that are our produce organic, we try to get them as much as we can. But again, um, we also have to remember that if we don't have enough clientels to purchase that particular item, we can't add that to our product list, because if we were to order it and if it's just sitting there, no one's going to buy it. So it's really like an X amount of numbers, like the X amount of items. So if we know that row by row is like, hey, Grow NYC Wholesale, we have turnips, we got some collard greens and some kales that we're selling for wholesale for this price, and our procurement manager has to, like, figure out the numbers, like, okay, if we're getting SSO for this product for this much and row by row is selling it this much by this much, but how many people will book it? That's the question. Like, it's like kind of like the chicken and egg theory. Like, what make more sense?
Yeah,
And also, so keep in mind too, like, we want to like add more organics to our product list, but we also have to understand that the majority of our clientele, which is what I said in the beginning of the conversation, is like, we have pantries, we have our NGOs who are doing food access program. They're more on the price sensitive. So they have to make sure that their funding is being stretched to the T, to their dollar. Like anyone who's shopping at the supermarket, we have a certain budget that we need to stay on and stretch it a little more. That's kind of like that same theory. So the pantry is going to be like, yeah, that's great. That's great that row by row has these turnips that are organic, but I can also buy it at SSO. That's, a fraction of a cost that I can have extra money to spend for something else for wholesale. So I know
yeah.
it's I know it's a I know it's a big answer,
Uh-huh.
but kind of
And
it's yeah.
yeah, and Anthony is saying he gets a lot of questions about sprays, like pesticides and what's it called? Pesticides and fertilizers and things like that. Is there a place where people can find info about that? Do our farmers make that information available?
So I know
I
Grown
guess
OC
growing
Host
practices. Is that
growing
yeah?
practices, yes. So Grown OC also has a section in the newsletter. So we have a newsletter. Uh you're more I can put my email address. If you want, you can put my email address in the chat, that if anyone in the call is interested in receiving our product list, I can add you into it. But there's information when we send out a weekly product list. There's a section at the bottom of wholesale where we have farmers growing practices, or farmers information about like who they are from A to Z. And if you click on that link, it tells each farmer's bio, and it also tells them in their bio will tell them will express their growing practices. I know I could tell you right off the bat, one of our apple supplier, our farmer, Lenoken, Wendy Loken, Lenoken, they use a farming practice called IPM, Integrated Pest Management, where they use crop rotation as a way to minimize uh, pest control. Less, I think with crop rotation, you're constantly changing one product to be grown in this particular location to another location to avoid infection or erosion. So from what I remember when I was doing soil management, I know it does a few things, like it amends the soil if you put a particular plant in there, provides nitrogen, fix the soil. But if you rotate it to have another different crop, then it kind of, I don't want to say heal itself, but it will treat itself not holistically versus spraying. So that format, Lynn Oken does that IPM uh, for pest control for her orchards. And it's a really, I think she sent me an article through Cornell. I think Cornell has like a website database where you get to know these vocabularies. What is IPM, or what is crop rotation? Like, they have a bank. I can't remember what the name of that particular part in the website in Cornell, but I remember seeing it there
Okay.
when I started to learn about the growing practices from different farmers.
Well, I'm gonna give folks an opportunity to either put questions in the chat or to unmute and ask with your voice. Michelle,
Mhm.
everything you've talked about is incredible. Thank you so much for
Oh,
just,
thanks.
yeah, I feel like you've really shed some light on some of the things that we don't know about when we're out in the field and people are asking us questions about sourcing and where our food is coming from. I think it's very important for us to know.
Mhm.
Um, any, do folks have any questions for Michelle? Either in the chat or I'm going to say Susanna says, that's so informative. Thank you.
Thank you. Also too, just to keep in mind, my background per se professionally, I
Mhm.
went to school for fashion. I did
Nice.
fashion design and business. So I have a
I didn't
business
know
back.
that. That's
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah. So it's fashion merchandising management. So it was kind of like learning the business of retail and wholesale from a
Mm-hmm.
manufacturer end. So when I made the transition to wholesale, to here, it was kind of like a no-brainer for me because it instead of dealing with out of style products, meaning like out of style clothing, I'm working with actual perishable products. But the teaching is still the same. You still need to know your customers. You still need to know the wholesale retail end. You definitely need to know if you're good with numbers. That's definitely from the buyers and procurement end. But what Tutu was also saying too, logistics too, also think about like transportation. When I worked in fashion, that's, we didn't, it was mostly boats, freights coming in from different parts of the country, like China, India, and I think India and China was the two main exports that we work with. So here it's no different. I'm working with regional and local. Regional meaning out of state, farmers that are coming from the Southeast region that are out of season during the time that we're not growing anything here in New York. But when it's in season, we're working with in season farmers that are coming locally. So again, logistics plays a lot of part of that. So that's another avenue to what Tuzu was saying. And also learning a second language helps in the procurement end, because you got to remember not just English, but we also have to remember there's different farmers from different backgrounds. Spanish is a plus, Chinese is a plus too. That's also, just keep in mind, like if you're doing procurement in that space, bilingual, be having a second language also helps too.
Um, I guess I don't see any questions in the chat, and I don't see anyone raising their hands. But I guess final question is, what is the future of wholesale? Like, where do you see wholesale going? Where's wholesale growing into? What are their priorities? What are they thinking about?
Mm.
Oh,
So future and wholesale. Our future is to first to get into our new warehouse hub back in Hunts Point. I think that's something that we're working. Our first priority is to start the infrastructure of getting more trucks, infrastructure wise. That's like we're hoping that we're getting a new system in place when we get to the warehouse, because that would make our jobs a little more easier in the technology space. Working with a better database would be great. Fleet would be great. And then the following would be the procurement. That means if we're working with a new space, that means we're going to have new opportunities to get other products, not just produce and grains, but that means exploring dairy. And I know dairy is crucial for all the farmers that we work with, but to have it wholesale quantity on our end and have like capacity to hold it in our refrigeration, that would be amazing, because not only are we just selling only limited items, but we're also introducing new products. And if I'm just putting it out there, but if we're able to work with like with proteins besides eggs, like meats and freezer items, meaning like fruits that are being sold as frozen that the farmers can sell to us during the out of season, like that would be great, because then that way our customers who are working in the restaurants can order frozen berries or frozen stone fruit when it's out of season. Like that's another great opportunity for us to carry and not just only sell in season products, because we have a limited shelf life for those amazing products that I just mentioned. So
I'm excited for that future. I'm
Me
gonna
too.
let I'm gonna let Egan ask a question.
Yeah.
Egan?
Hey, Michelle, thank you. This is a great presentation. I was curious. So was when you mentioned like tomato sauce and products
Hmm.
that you get that's new, is that something that you sort of like talk to farmers and say, hey, you know, what'd be great if you were to do this, or is it something that they just do on their own? And you say I mean, is it a collaboration of ideas where you say, well, you have all this product. What if you decide to do, kimchi, for example, or something else with it as value added products, or is something that they come up
Oh,
with?
I
You
like
say,
that.
yeah, we'll take that and put that on our product list. So how does that work? Is that integrated? Yeah.
So that's a great question, and I like that example that you brought in kimchi. That's a really great product to think about too. I'm just thinking like all sorts of like clients who would attend that. So yeah, so that's like one example. So pasta was actually introduced by the necessity through the Nourish New York funding. We had a supplier, which is the River Fund, who's had X amount of pasta that needed to, that is nourish requirement, but looking for another outlet to sell it to. So they approached us like, hey, we're having pasta and we're also having these beans that we can package for you with your own packaging. And you would pay us this X amount just for doing this partnership. Will this make sense? Is that something that you're interested? So that is a question for procurement to decide and table that idea with the rest of our team and see if that makes sense. Primarily our sales department, because that's where Leela and myself will and Sarah will start thinking about like, okay, if we introduce this product, beans is totally fine because we'll always sell beans if it's prepackaged in 1 pound bags. Who wouldn't want that? That's easy for to package, easy to give away for any of the pantry buyers or the pantry buyers. But when it comes to like a particular product like pasta and sauce, like now we have to like think back and like, okay, who in our customers would purchase this? Who would be a large recipient who would purchase this? Because we're taking on a risk if we were to blindly purchase it and see who hit the dart and see if it falls in the middle, kind of that, and we don't want to do that. So we had to carefully you know generate reports and see like and see which clientels would make sense and ask these questions to them like, hey, we're introducing this new product. Do you think your pantry director or the coordinator would be interested in purchasing this? And if so, like how much would you say would you want to pay for it? We always want to ask the questions to our buyers first, if it makes sense. That's when we gather that information and then we make our assessment. Okay, I think we should do this. I think this is a great information that we're getting from our buyers. We're getting input from other people who are interested in this. So we don't just go ahead and jump right to it. There has to be like levels of us to jump in order for it to make sense for us to introduce that product. The tomato concept, the tomato can, that came through like last year idea that we had to like carefully examine before we introduce something. The pasta came really quickly because it was a bundle through another supplier, and it was during 2020 and 2021, so it just made sense. But the pasta sauce, it was like new and it was a little expensive. It was made out of glass. It's not made out of metal cans. So again, the price point is going to be very right. So we had enough input in order for us to make sense to like, okay, let's carry it. So, but it took a year for us to plan that. So hopefully that answers your question.
Wow. Thank you so much, Michelle. We are at 6 p.m., so I definitely
Yes.
have to dismiss us. Thank you so much. I think you have done such a great job to help bridge the gap between what happens on and just letting you know that lots of people are saying thank you in the chat. Thanks for helping bridge that gap between, behind the scenes and the folks who are on the ground. I feel like a lot more people enlightened about what's going on and what goes into decisions made around wholesale. So we definitely will invite you again next year, Michelle. Thank you so much for your time.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you so
Have a
much for
great,
having me. Thank
of
you.
course. And Michelle's email, if you want to get in touch, is just mhernandez at growingysc.org. So if you have any questions, feel free. And if you want to sign up for the newsletter also, please do so by emailing her. I also
Mhm.
put a sign up list in the chat. But thank you, everyone. Have a good night, and you are dismissed. Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Yeah.